The invitation arrived less than an hour after Olivia Bennet introduced me as her fiancé, and the look on her boss's face told me he had not invited us to his family estate to celebrate. Until that moment, the performance had gone exactly as Olivia planned. I had remembered the story of our imaginary first date, kept my hand lightly against her back during the executive reception, and smiled while senior partners admired the small emerald on her finger. Olivia and I had known each other for 6 days. Our engagement was supposed to last until the board selected the new director of community development, a promotion she had spent 4 years earning. Then Harrison Blackwood approached us with 2 glasses of champagne and an expression too calm to be friendly. "My mother is hosting a private weekend at Blackwood Ridge," he said. "The final candidates and their partners will attend." Olivia's fingers tightened around mine. The interviews were supposed to end tonight. Plans change. His gaze moved to the old brass mechanical pencil clipped inside my jacket pocket. It had belonged to my father, and the worn silver band around its center bore an engraving shaped like a bridge crossing 3 waves. Harrison looked at it long enough to forget the champagne in his hand. "Where did you get that?" he asked. "It belonged to my father." "Name?" "Daniel Ward." The glass in Harrison's right hand tilted. "Daniel Ward never had a son." Olivia turned toward him. "You knew Ethan's father?" Harrison ignored her. "Your fiancé will come to the estate." It did not sound like a request. "My mother will want to meet him." "Why?" I asked. His smile returned, but not the warmth. "Because 30 years ago, Daniel Ward disappeared from Blackwood Ridge carrying evidence that could have destroyed my family." Before I tell you how a fake engagement for a promotion became a fight over a stolen design, a vanished engineer, and a love neither of us trusted while her career depended on my silence, subscribe if you enjoy emotional stories about hidden family truths and difficult choices. And leave a comment telling me whether you would accept an invitation from a powerful man who recognized something your father left behind because the truth waiting at Blackwood Ridge changed everything Olivia and I believed about success. 6 days earlier, I had been restoring the carved ticket windows inside an abandoned Richmond train station when Olivia Bennet stepped through the construction barrier and asked whether I could look convincingly devoted without becoming possessive. I lowered the sanding block in my hand. She wore a charcoal coat over a pale blouse, her dark brown hair tied at the nape of her neck, and an expression suggesting she had already rejected several less humiliating solutions. "That depends," I said. "How long does the devotion last?" "Until next Monday. A highly efficient engagement." She placed a leather folder and 2 coffees on my workbench. I recognized the emblem of the private companion agency where I had registered 8 months earlier. My architectural restoration company had lost its largest client when a hotel developer entered bankruptcy after 6 months of unpaid work. The debt left me responsible for materials, payroll, and equipment leases. Agency assignments helped me keep 2 craftsmen employed while I rebuilt the business. Most involved charity dinners or professional events where clients did not want to arrive alone. I had never impersonated a fiancé for a promotion. "You are Ethan Ward?" she asked. "That depends on whether this concerns the station or the folder." "The folder. Then yes. The agency says you are discreet, observant, and capable of remembering details under pressure." They omitted charming. Charm was not one of my requirements. That seems unwise when hiring a future husband. The corner of her mouth lifted before she opened the folder. Olivia worked for Blackwood Urban Partners, a national development firm specializing in historic rehabilitation, public-private housing, and large civic projects. She was senior program manager for the company's community development division. The current director was retiring. Olivia had led the division's most successful affordable housing project, negotiated 3 city partnerships, and developed a plan to convert an abandoned textile complex into apartments, classrooms, childcare, and small business space. She was one of 2 finalists for the promotion. "Who is the other?" I asked. "Martin Shaw. He manages luxury redevelopment." "Does he have more experience? Less community experience, more time playing golf with the executive committee?" "And why does your relationship status matter?" She aligned the folder with the edge of my workbench. "Harrison Blackwood says the new director must inspire confidence among conservative investors and family foundations." Translation? He believes Martin appears stable because he is married with children, while I appear temporary because I am 34, unmarried, and unwilling to discuss my private life at work. Has he said that directly? Never in language human resources could use. She opened a page of meeting notes. Harrison had repeatedly praised Martin's rootedness, family perspective, taught in long-term personal investment. He had asked Olivia whether the travel demands of the position would be compatible with the life she hoped to build. What did you say? I asked. That no one asked Martin whether parenthood would affect his travel. I assume that improved the atmosphere at Thai. It clarified it. The lie began at a donor lunch 2 weeks earlier. An executive's wife asked whether Olivia had anyone important in her life. Olivia answered that she did, meaning the residents and partners involved in the textile project. The woman interpreted the answer romantically. By the time Olivia understood, Harrison had already mentioned her serious relationship during a closed executive discussion. Correct him, I said. I tried. He said he was pleased I had finally created balance and invited my partner to the final reception. So you decided to give him one. Long enough to force the committee to assess my record without using my personal life as evidence. And afterward, we announced that the engagement ended privately. That may confirm every unfair assumption he already holds. By then, the promotion decision will be recorded, and the textile project will have independent approval. She turned to the payment page. The amount would cover nearly 3 months of payroll and replace a specialized router damaged during the station restoration. You are paying too much. I am paying for preparation, public scrutiny, and the possibility that my employer investigates you. They will. The agency confirmed your background is uncomplicated, meaning no spouse, no dependents, no criminal record, and no close relatives likely to contradict the relationship. That is an invasive definition of uncomplicated. I agree. But useful. Yes. The agreement required us to present a believable 10-month relationship, attend the executive reception, appear together at one donor dinner if necessary, and remain publicly engaged until the promotion decision. We would maintain separate homes, no shared finances, no physical affection without agreement, no promises about an immediate wedding. Neither party would interpret protectiveness, jealousy, personal disclosure, or emotional reliance as evidence of genuine romantic intention. You highlighted this clause, I said. Clarity prevents confusion. In contracts, why choose a stranger instead of a friend? A friend might think helping gave him a claim on my future. That happened before. Her expression did not change, but her fingers stopped moving. It did. I waited. She did not elaborate. Why does the promotion matter beyond the title? I asked. She pulled out photographs of a brick textile complex beside a river. Some buildings were roofless. Others had boarded windows and weeds growing through loading docks. Her proposal would preserve the main structures while creating mixed-income housing and transitional apartments for young adults leaving foster care. I spent almost 3 years in care after my mother died, she said. My father had disappeared years earlier. An aunt took me briefly, then lost guardianship after financial problems. I aged out of a group home at 18 with one suitcase and a scholarship that did not cover housing during school breaks. And now you want the division to build what you needed. I want housing where losing a job, failing a class, or asking for help does not make the door disappear. My father had said something similar. Daniel Ward repaired clocks, drafting instruments, and old machinery in a narrow shop behind our house. He spent part of his childhood in foster care and donated anonymously to housing charities every winter. A room keeps someone dry, a must mine, he once told me. A place they can return to teaches them one mistake is not exile. Olivia's project mattered. Why did you choose me specifically? I asked. Your profile says you restore historic buildings without removing every mark of use. The textile complex needs someone who understands preservation. Professional reason. Former clients said you make people feel safe without treating them as fragile. Still professional. Her eyes moved to mine. Your photograph looked kind. The answer came quietly enough to surprise both of us. That seems like dangerous criteria for hiring a liar. Can you do it? One engagement. Relief softened her face. One temporary engagement. We met the following morning at an antique jewelry store. Olivia rejected every large diamond because Harrison and several executives knew she disliked jewelry designed mainly to advertise cost. She selected a small emerald surrounded by seed pearls in a worn gold setting. Someone wore this every day, she said. Most antique rings belong to someone. I mean the underside. It was part of an ordinary life. You like evidence of use. Perfection makes me suspicious. The jeweler placed the ring in my palm and I slid it onto Olivia's finger to test the size. Her hand trembled. Too tight? I asked. No. Then why are you staring at it? It looks real. That is the purpose. Objects should not create belief this quickly. They do not. They give people permission to accept the story they already prefer. Her gaze lifted. What story does my company prefer? That a man choosing you proves you can manage long-term responsibility. And what do you think? I think they should have noticed you already chose work worth respecting. Color touched her cheeks. She removed the ring and handed it to the jeweler for cleaning, but her fingers brushed mine before she let go. We spent the afternoon creating our fictional history in a quiet cafe. We had supposedly met 10 months earlier while I inspected water damage at a neighborhood library, Olivia's division plant to renovate. Our first date took place beside the James River. I proposed 6 weeks earlier inside the textile complex after helping her measure the former weaving hall. What did you say? She asked. During the imaginary proposal? Harrison's wife will request exact words. She considers proposals character evidence. What would convince you? It does not have to convince me. Your face will be part of the performance. She arranged 3 sugar packets into a straight line. I would want him to respect my work. That sounds like a recommendation letter. Then say he admires my independence. People admire independence until it prevents them from feeling necessary. Her fingers stopped moving. You are making assumptions. You hired me to create a believable relationship. Then invent something believable. I studied her across the table. I would tell you that you learned to stand alone because adults who promised stability changed the terms whenever protecting you became inconvenient. I would say I do not want to rescue you, direct you, or become proof that your choices are respectable. I want the ordinary evenings after difficult days, when your shoes are beside the door and you no longer need to explain why the work mattered. Then I would ask whether you would let me earn a place in that life. Olivia stared at me. That is too intimate. Is it inaccurate? You have known me for one day. You straighten objects when anxious, become more formal when hurt, and have called the textile project ours twice even though I have never seen the property. Most people think I am difficult to read. Most people may be waiting for a version that causes them less inconvenience. She scattered the sugar packets. Use a shorter proposal. Before we left, the jeweler offered to take an engagement photograph for the insurance record. Olivia began to refuse, then placed her ring hand against my chest and moved beside me. My arms settled around her waist. She looked up just before the camera flashed. For 1 second, the warmth in her expression did not appear rehearsed. The executive reception took place Friday evening inside Blackwood Urban Partners headquarters, a restored bank building overlooking downtown Richmond. Olivia wore a dark green dress and the emerald ring. I wore the only tuxedo I owned and carried my father's brass mechanical pencil because formal jackets lacked enough practical pockets. Harrison Blackwood greeted us near the entrance. He was 61, silver-haired, and controlled enough to make congratulations sound like a performance review. So, this is Ethan. His handshake was firm and unnecessarily long. Olivia has kept you private. We valued the quiet. That is unusual for an engagement. Not everyone treats intimacy as a corporate announcement. Olivia's shoulder touched mine in warning, but Harrison only smiled. Martin Shaw arrived with his wife and 2 teenage children. He seemed competent, polite, and uncomfortable with the competition Harrison had created. I did not know partners were part of the evaluation, he told me while Olivia spoke with a trustee. Neither did Olivia. Harrison believes leadership is visible at dinner tables. Leadership is usually visible when budgets fail. Martin laughed. You may not survive the evening. That would reduce the field indirectly. The reception moved through speeches, donor introductions, and quiet tests disguised as conversation. Olivia knew every project number, every resident statistic, and every funding deadline. Yet Harrison repeatedly asked me whether I was prepared for her travel schedule, as though my approval mattered more than the work. Olivia does not need permission to travel, I said. Marriage changes priorities. So does promotion. Neither makes her judgment mine. Harrison looked toward her. You found an unusually modern man. I found one who listens before evaluating, she replied. The sentence landed between us with more warmth than the script required. During dinner, Harrison's wife asked for our proposal story. Olivia looked at me, granting permission to speak. I told her I knew she could survive alone, I said. I was asking whether survival still had to be the highest standard. I said I did not want to rescue her, manage her, or become evidence that her decisions were respectable. I wanted the ordinary evenings after difficult days, when her shoes were beside the door and she no longer needed to explain why the work mattered. The table became quiet. Olivia's fingers found mine beneath the linen. "That is what he said," she whispered. The performance felt dangerous because part of the speech had become true. After dinner, the candidates presented their final proposals. Martin outlined a profitable entertainment district around the textile complex. Olivia presented housing, commercial space, childcare, apprenticeships, and resident governance. Harrison challenged her operating reserves. She answered. A board member questioned transportation. She produced an agreement with the city. Another asked whether transitional residents would threaten market rate leasing. Olivia replied, stable housing improves the entire development. Vulnerability is not contamination. I noticed Harrison watching her ring whenever she answered firmly, as if searching for proof that engagement had softened her. It had not. When he asked whether her personal history made her too emotionally invested, I spoke before deciding whether a hired fiancé had the right. Every development decision reflects someone's experience. The luxury proposal assumes high-income tenants are objective while former foster youth are emotional. That is not neutrality, it is preference wearing a suit. Harrison's gaze narrowed. Olivia does not require an advocate. No, she requires the same numbers to matter regardless of who is standing beside her. One trustee nodded. Harrison did not. The board postponed its decision until Monday. Olivia appeared hopeful for the first time all evening. She squeezed my hand under the table and forgot to release it. Then Harrison approached with champagne, noticed my father's pencil, and invited us to Blackwood Ridge. We left the reception shortly after midnight. In the parking garage, Olivia leaned against her car without unlocking it. We can end this now, she said. You may lose the promotion. That is my risk. The fee matters to my employees. I will pay for the reception. I am going to the estate. Why? I removed the pencil and turned it beneath the garage light. The bridge and waves symbol was almost identical to the emblem carved into the Blackwood reception podium. I had seen it dozens of times that evening without understanding why it felt familiar. My father left a sealed letter with instructions to open it if anyone connected him to Blackwood Ridge. Olivia looked at me. You have the letter? At my workshop. Then we read it before deciding. You do not have to be involved. My employer invited us as a couple because of the lie I created. That makes me involved. Your promotion depends on Harrison. My promotion should depend on my work. She held out her hand. The contract says no pretending in private. So privately, I am asking whether you want me beside you. The question mattered because she gave me a choice instead of treating my history as evidence she could use. Yes, I said. We drove to my workshop. The sealed envelope had rested inside my father's tool chest since his death 5 years earlier. Across the front, he had written, Ethan. Open only when someone recognizes the bridge. My hands shook slightly as I broke the seal. Son, if you are reading this, Blackwood Ridge has found its way back into our lives. My birth name was Daniel Mercer, not Daniel Ward. Peter Ward and his wife raised me after my father disappeared. They gave me a home and a name I chose to keep. My father, Thomas Mercer, was chief engineer for Blackwood Development. He designed the modular bridge system, flood-resistant housing frame, and much of what became Blackwood Urban Partners' early success. He discovered the company was substituting cheaper materials in public housing and building cities for his original specifications. When he tried to report it, Harrison's father accused him of theft. Thomas hid copies of the designs at Blackwood Ridge. I returned once as an adult but was threatened into leaving. The mechanical pencil contains the key to his archive. Do not let them use blood, money, or guilt to tell you who your father was. Peter Ward raised me. Thomas Mercer gave me a beginning. Both truths belong to us. Olivia sat beside me on the workshop floor, close enough that our shoulders touched. Did he ever mention Mercer? She asked. Never. What happened when he returned? The letter does not say. Beneath the first page was a photograph of Daniel at 23 standing beside a younger Harrison Blackwood, and a dark-haired man who looked enough like me to make denial feel childish. The man held the same pencil. On the back, Daniel had written Thomas Mercer, Harrison Blackwood, and Daniel Mercer the last day before the hearing. Harrison said Daniel never had a son, Olivia whispered. He knew my father under another name. And he invited us because he believes you have the archive key. Probably. Then we do not go alone. She called her attorney, a corporate ethics lawyer named Rachel Lynn, and described the invitation without mentioning the fake engagement. Rachel advised us to document everything, inform a neutral board member where we would be, and leave immediately if Harrison attempted to restrict us. You could lose the promotion for doing this, I said after the call. I could lose myself by ignoring it. That sounds dramatic. You restore train stations. You have no authority to criticize drama. We arrived at Blackwood Ridge Saturday afternoon. The estate stood in the Blue Ridge foothills, a stone mansion overlooking a narrow lake, old workshops, and a private bridge crossing a ravine. Harrison's mother, Margaret Blackwood, met us in the entrance hall. She was 83, silver-haired, and alert enough to make every younger person careful. When Olivia introduced me, Margaret looked at my face, then at the pencil. Her hand went to her throat. "Daniel's boy," she whispered. Harrison stepped between us. "Mother, Ethan is Daniel Ward's son." Daniel Ward was Daniel Mercer. She reached for my face but stopped before touching me. "May I?" I nodded. Her fingers brushed the narrow scar beside my eyebrow. Thomas had the same mark after the workshop accident. Harrison's wife lowered her glass. Martin, who had also been invited with his family, looked toward the door as though considering whether leaving would be rude or necessary. Margaret faced her son. "You told me Daniel died without children. I believe that. You sent investigators to his funeral." Harrison's expression hardened. Mother is confused. Age has not made me confused. It has made everyone else less patient with my memory. Olivia stepped beside me. "Why did Thomas Mercer disappear?" Margaret looked toward the old bridge visible through the windows. "Because my husband chose the company over the truth, and my son helped him." Harrison ordered a dinner to proceed. Margaret refused. "We have postponed this meal for 30 years. She led us into the library, where an enormous architectural model of the estate occupied the center table. Harrison closed the doors. Olivia opened them again. "No closed rooms, Jamacom," she said. "Not for this conversation." Harrison looked at her. "Remember who decides your promotion." I'm beginning to understand exactly who decides it. And Margaret explained that Thomas Mercer had joined Blackwood Development as a young engineer. He designed an inexpensive modular system for bridges, schools, and apartment buildings in flood-prone communities. Harrison's father, William Blackwood, patented the system through the family company and promised Thomas ownership. Instead, William altered contracts, substituted lower-grade steel, and transferred Thomas's royalties into Blackwood accounts. Thomas discovered cracks in 2 housing projects, Margaret said. He demanded immediate evacuation and public disclosure. "Were people hurt?" I asked. "A stairwell collapsed in one complex. 3 residents were injured." Harrison crossed towards the fireplace. "The company repaired every building. After Thomas threatened federal action," Margaret replied, "he prepared evidence and planned to testify before a state committee. The night before the hearing, a workshop burned. Thomas disappeared." "No body?" Olivia asked. "None." "Then why was he declared dead?" "His truck was found near the river with blood inside." Harrison spoke carefully. "Police believed he fled after stealing company plans." "Plans he designed," Margaret said, Daniel, then 9 years old, had been staying at Blackwood Ridge because Thomas's wife was ill. After Thomas disappeared, Margaret tried to send the boy to relatives. William instead placed him in a private children's home under the name Daniel Ward, claiming publicity would endanger him. "Peter and Rose Ward worked there, she said. "They adopted him after the institution closed." "Did you search for him?" I asked. Shame moved across her face. "At first, then William told me Daniel died during a flood evacuation." "You believed him?" "Believing him allowed me to remain married without admitting what kind of man I had chosen." Harrison objected that his father had been protecting the company and employees from Thomas's instability. Margaret answered, "Powerful families call truth instability when it threatens the payroll." Daniel returned at 23 carrying the pencil and asking to open Thomas's archive. Harrison met him before Margaret knew he had arrived. "What did you do?" Olivia asked. Harrison looked toward me. "I offered him a settlement." "You threatened Peter Ward," Margaret said. Harrison's jaw tightened. "Daniel had no legal proof of identity. My father believed Peter had kidnapped him." "Peter rescued a child your family erased. Daniel accepted the settlement. Because you said Peter would go to prison." Harrison's silence answered. I opened the pencil beneath the library light. The center band unscrewed, revealing a thin steel key and a strip of paper marked East Bridge, third pier, below floodline. Margaret closed her eyes. Thomas's archive. Harrison moved toward me. Olivia stepped between us. Do not touch him. That key may belong to Blackwood property. Then an independent attorney can determine that. This is a private family matter. You connected it to a corporate promotion the moment you invited us here. Martin stood near the doorway. She is right. Harrison turned on him. You should remain outside this. You brought every candidate to an estate where one candidate's fiancé may possess evidence against the company. I am already inside it. Margaret called the county sheriff, an independent structural engineer, and the family attorney who had served her before Harrison took control. Harrison accused her of humiliating the family. Humiliation is not the same as injustice, Bob, she replied. We have survived one by hiding the other. The East Bridge crossed a rocky ravine behind the estate. The third pier stood beside the river, partly concealed by ivy. The engineer located a maintenance plate below the old flood mark. My key opened it. Inside was a watertight steel compartment containing rolled plans, ledgers, photographs, tape recordings, and sealed letters. The sheriff documented everything before allowing us to touch it. The first envelope carried Daniel Mercer's name. My hands shook as I opened it. My son, if Margaret or Peter brings you here, I may not have returned. Peter Ward is the only man I trust with your life. If he raises you, he becomes your father through every breakfast, fever, argument, and ordinary evening he stays. Do not let Blackwood money use blood to make that love temporary. I designed these systems to build safe homes and bridges for people who cannot survive another betrayal. William has used them to take public money while weakening the structures. Harrison knows enough to stop him. Whether he chooses courage will define him more than inheritance. Keep whichever name allows you to live honestly. Use whatever is recovered not for revenge but to repair what our work harmed. Thomas Mercer's signature appeared beneath the words. Olivia stood beside me without touching until I turned my palm upward. Then she placed her fingers inside it. No executive watched us with approval. No contract required the gesture. The plans proved Thomas designed the bridge and housing systems later patented by Blackwood Urban Partners. Ledgers documented diverted royalties and material substitutions. Photographs showed cracks hidden behind cosmetic repairs. One tape preserved a meeting between Thomas, William, and a 28-year-old Harrison. William ordered Thomas to sign a false report. Thomas refused. Harrison said, "Give us 6 months to replace the steel quietly." Thomas answered, "Families are living there now." Public disclosure will bankrupt the company for census. Harrison said, "Then the company should not survive by asking tenants to carry the risk." The tape ended with William threatening Thomas's wife and child. Harrison stood several feet away, listening to his younger voice. I was trying to prevent collapse. Olivia released my hand. "Did you warn Thomas?" "I gave him money and told him to leave." "Then why was his truck found by the river?" "My father sent security to recover the documents. I did not know they would follow him that night." Margaret looked at her son. "You knew afterward." "I knew there had been a confrontation." "And Daniel?" I asked. "You saw my father 20 years later." Harrison stared at the ravine. "He wanted public acknowledgement and control of the patents. The letter says he wanted the archive. That archive would have destroyed thousands of jobs. So you threatened the man who raised him." "I protected the company." The phrase sounded practiced enough to have outlived belief. A final set of documents transferred Thomas's patent rights and his ownership share into a protective trust for Daniel and his descendants if Blackwood leadership concealed safety violations. If authenticated, I owned a significant part of the company's early intellectual property. More importantly, the trust required that all recovered royalties fund repairs, resident compensation, and affordable housing. Olivia's textile project could qualify for support, but only through an independent application. Harrison recognized the leverage immediately. "Your company is in debt, he said. "I know about the hotel bankruptcy. Renounce the trust, turn the archive over to Blackwood Council, and I will pay every outstanding invoice." Olivia receives the promotion and complete funding for her textile project. The offer targeted everything practical. My employees would remain paid. Olivia would receive the position she deserved. Her housing program could begin. Blackwood Urban Partners might avoid public ruin. All I had to do was surrender my grandfather's work and trust the man who had threatened my father into silence. Olivia stepped between us. "Do not make this decision for my promotion. It matters to you." That does not give it the right to purchase his silence. You have spent 4 years earning this position. Then I should receive it because of my work. You will receive nothing if the company enters investigation. Then I will work somewhere else. Harrison's composure fractured. You hired this man 6 days ago. Martin looked at Olivia. Margaret looked at me. The sheriff stopped writing. Olivia removed the emerald ring and placed it on top of the archive case. Yes, I hired him because you taught me that a woman's private life could be used as evidence against her. That was dishonest. But I will not protect the lie by helping you repeat a larger one. You are choosing a paid stranger over your career. Olivia faced him. I am choosing not to become you. Harrison reached for the archive case. The sheriff blocked him, but the movement knocked a roll of plans toward the edge of the maintenance platform. I caught it and stepped backward onto a rusted grate. The metal gave way beneath me. Olivia seized my jacket while Martin and the engineer caught my arms. For one terrible second, I hung above the river, my father's pencil slipping from my pocket. Olivia caught the chain attached to its clip before it fell. They pulled me onto the stone platform. My breathing would not settle. Water roared below, and a memory that belonged to stories rather than my own life moved through me, Daniel waking from nightmares, repeating that Thomas told him to run toward the bridge. Olivia held my face between her hands. Look at me. I focused on her. Ethan? She asked carefully. Which Ethan? The question escaped before I could stop it. She understood. The one who decides. I closed my eyes, then opened them. Ethan Ward. Then stay with me, Ethan Ward. The sheriff secured the evidence. Margaret's attorney contacted the state attorney general and federal housing authorities before sunset. Harrison temporarily resigned from the company after 3 board members demanded independent review. The promotion process was suspended. Olivia lost the position she had created the false engagement to win. Martin withdrew his candidacy until the company completed an ethics audit. Competing during this would make the result meaningless, he said. Harrison accused both of disloyalty. Margaret answered, loyalty to an institution cannot require loyalty to its deception. Olivia and I returned to Richmond Sunday morning. In the parking lot outside my workshop, she held the emerald inside its box. The arrangement ends now, she said. The promotion no longer exists. The fee still matters. I will pay for preparation and the reception. I stayed for reasons outside the agreement. That is the problem. Why? Because I do not know whether I protected you because I care, because I brought you into the estate, or because your trust could fund the textile project. And I do not know whether I want you beside me because you were the first person who asked which name I chose. Then we cannot trust what happened yet. Her boundary hurt because it protected both of us. What do we do? I asked. You learn who Thomas and Daniel were without anyone claiming you. I rebuild my career without your trust. If something remains after the investigation, the promotion, and the money disappear, we face it then. No assumptions. No contract. No fake ring. Tears brightened her eyes, but she nodded. No more pretending. She handed me the box and walked away before either of us could use crisis as a reason to stop her. The investigation lasted 10 months. Federal engineers reviewed every housing and bridge project connected to Thomas's designs. Most had been reinforced over the years, but several required immediate repairs. Blackwood Urban Partners entered court-supervised management, sold luxury assets, and established a resident compensation fund. The company did not collapse. Executives lost positions. Shareholders lost money. Employees continued working under independent leadership. The people who had warned that truth would destroy everything discovered that truth mostly destroyed their control. Evidence showed William Blackwood's security team confronted Thomas near the river, but investigators could not prove they killed him. A rural hospital ledger revealed that Thomas survived with serious injuries and memory loss. He lived under another name for 4 years, repeatedly asking whether Daniel was safe. He died before learning Peter and Rose Ward had adopted his son. Daniel's journals explained why he never told me. Ethan, Thomas Mercer gave me a beginning. Peter and Rose Ward gave me a life. I returned to Blackwood Ridge believing truth would free me. Harrison threatened the people who had become my parents, and I chose silence. The first silence protected them. The later years protected me from the possibility that you would see our home as only a hiding place. Keep Ward if it honors the life we built. Take Mercer if it helps repair what was stolen. Carry both if choosing one feels like another lie. I chose Ethan Daniel Ward. Mercer became part of my legal history and the trust documents, but Ward remained on my company sign. Discovering Thomas did not demote Daniel, Peter, or Rose. It widened the story of who had loved us and where fear had interrupted truth. Harrison admitted concealing Daniel's return and continuing the patent fraud. He denied knowing his father's security team intended violence. He entered a restitution agreement and permanently resigned. Margaret transferred her family shares into an employee and resident trust. Martin became interim operations director only after the board adopted independent ethics oversight. He offered Olivia the community development promotion. She declined. Why? I asked when we met briefly at a public hearing. Because the division still reports to executives who consider affordable housing a reputation strategy. You spent 4 years earning it. I spent 4 years believing the title was the only way to do the work. She formed an independent nonprofit called Common Ground Development and negotiated with the city to acquire a smaller industrial complex near public transportation. Her textile proposal changed location, scale, and funding. The new property lacked the dramatic riverfront architecture of the Blackwood site, but it sat beside a community college, a hospital, and 3 employers willing to offer apprenticeships. She refused money from the Mercer Restitution Trust during its first funding cycle. The project should survive without your private influence, she told the board. My company recovered slowly. I declined Harrison's settlement offer and accepted only contracts awarded through open bidding. We won restoration work on 2 damaged housing complexes and lost 3 other projects to lower-cost firms. My business partner treated the losses as proof that ethics were financially inefficient. Ethics are inconvenient, I told him. That is how Olivia says we know they are real. He looked at me. You still talk to her? Only at hearings. We saw each other 7 times during those months. Every conversation remained polite, careful, and far too short. Distance proved we were not confusing danger with intimacy. It also showed me how much space Olivia had already occupied in my ordinary life. I missed the way she aligned folders before difficult discussions, the dry humor she revealed when no executive watched, and the fierce clarity with which she had surrendered the promotion she spent years earning rather than accept it through my silence. I began admitting something I had resisted since the bridge. I did not miss the fictional fiancé. I missed Olivia. The real choice came on a cold February morning when she entered my workshop carrying 2 coffees, rolled plans, and a small wooden box. Common Ground received the property transfer, she said. Congratulations. Construction begins in April. You earned it. We need a preservation consultant. Open bidding? The main contract is open bidding. The preliminary historical assessment falls below the procurement threshold. Convenient. I checked with 3 attorneys, 2 auditors, and Martin, who still dislikes being involved in our personal history. She placed my coffee beside the sanding block, 1 sugar, no cream. Then why are you here instead of sending a formal request? She set the wooden box on my workbench. Inside was the emerald ring from our false engagement. Because every important thing has happened for 10 months and you remain the first person I want to tell. My chest tightened. That could be gratitude. I am grateful to the federal engineer. I do not rehearse conversations with her while driving. Perhaps she has less interesting opinions about brickwork. She has detailed opinions about load paths. Neither fact answers the question. Olivia smiled, then became serious. I missed you. I set down the hinge in my hand. I missed you too. Her shoulders lowered. Then ask me to dinner. You came here to instruct me to invite you? I am practicing direct communication. 7 tonight? You remembered my schedule? I was hired to remember details. Our first real date took place at a small restaurant beside the James River where no executives, trustees, or federal investigators could observe us. Olivia wore a red sweater instead of the formal clothes she chose at Blackwood meetings. She left her phone inside her bag. We spoke about our adult lives rather than the archive. She told me Common Ground began after a girl from her group home, aged out at 18, lost access to her college dorm during winter break, and slept in a hospital waiting room because it was the only heated place that did not require a permanent address. Everyone praised her independence, Olivia said. No one asked whether independence was simply abandonment made respectable. I told her I became a restorer because Daniel once brought home a broken drafting table and made me study every joint before touching the glue. He said understanding why something failed mattered more than hiding the damage. Was the proposal speech real? Olivia asked after dessert. Which part? Wanting the ordinary evenings. I had known you one day. That is not an answer. It was real enough that I almost refused the engagement. Why? Because I could imagine them. She looked down at her hands. So could I. We walked beside the river afterward. Winter lights reflected across the water. Olivia stopped beneath an iron footbridge. Our contract allowed one kiss if refusing would expose the arrangement. We never used it. There was no credible need. Very efficient. The engagement ended months ago. I know. Then no kiss is necessary. Is that a refusal? I touched her cheek. It is why it would matter. I waited until she nodded. The kiss began carefully, without an audience, promotion, contract, or hidden trust requiring it. Then her hands closed around my coat, and every staged touch at the executive reception became obviously empty beside the real one. When we separated, she rested her forehead against mine. That felt new, she whispered. Good. We dated for 18 months before discussing marriage. Olivia opened the first residential wing at Common Ground. My company won part of the restoration through competitive bidding and lost another section to a firm with a stronger accessibility plan. Olivia refused to influence the board. Ethics are inconvenient, she reminded me when I complained. We learned that love did not erase habits created by abandonment and secrecy. I hid financial trouble when a supplier sued my company, telling myself I was protecting her from stress. She found the documents and said, "You cannot promise honesty and carry danger alone because silence feels noble." She was right. Months later, when a grant was delayed and Olivia began sleeping in her office, I told her independence had become isolation. She went home, rested, and delegated the emergency budget. Love did not remove our defenses. It gave them nowhere safe to hide. Margaret visited Common Ground every month and never treated me as Thomas returned. She brought photographs and stories, but always asked before using the Mercer name. Martin joined the nonprofit's advisory board after leaving Blackwood and signing strict conflict of interest rules. Harrison wrote letters without asking for forgiveness. Olivia read the one addressed to her when she was ready. I met him once in the smaller house where he lived after losing the estate. I told myself Daniel wanted to destroy the company, he said. My father stayed away because the wards loved him, not because you silenced him. Yes. Do you regret what happened or only what it cost? He took a long time to answer. Both. I wish the better answer were complete. Honesty did not create reconciliation, but it ended another performance. Some relationships continued through boundaries, others remained distant. Healing did not require placing everyone back inside the same room. 2 years after Harrison invited us to Blackwood Ridge, Common Ground held its first anniversary celebration inside the restored weaving hall. The old mechanical pencil, Thomas's bridge plans, Daniel's letter, and the emerald ring were displayed in a small archive documenting how the project began. Beside them lay our original engagement agreement. Olivia had crossed out the clause denying emotional assumptions and written beneath it, "Any relationship created to influence a promotion must be reconsidered after neither career nor reputation can benefit from it." Margaret spoke briefly beneath the restored skylights. The first time Ethan came to Blackwood Ridge, my son saw an heir, a threat, and a key to an archive. Olivia saw a person who deserved to choose what happened to his own history. Recognition is not ownership. Employment is not loyalty. A family or company that requires silence in exchange for belonging has confused a home with a cage. After the ceremony, Olivia touched my arm. "Walk with me." She led me to the upper gallery overlooking the residential courtyard. Lanterns glowed between exposed brick columns. On a drafting table sat a wooden box made from walnut salvaged from Blackwood Ridge's old engineering workshop. "You planned something," I said. "Possibly. Without board review? Personal gifts are exempt." She opened the box. Inside was the emerald from our false engagement reset into a simple gold band. Engraved inside were the words "chosen beyond the promotion." My heartbeat changed. "Olivia, the first time I wore this stone, I wanted a company to believe someone had chosen me. The truth was that I had hired your presence because I believed my work needed a man's approval before powerful people would respect it." She took my hand. "For a long time I worried loving you would always contain that transaction, so we ended it. We stepped away. I built Common Ground without your trust. You rebuilt your company without my promotion. After every professional reason to remain connected disappeared, you were still the person I wanted beside me. Are you proposing?" "I am considering it." "Then I object." Her expression fell until I removed another wooden box from my jacket. Mine was made from oak recovered from the train station where we met. "Margaret told you," she said, Margaret believes family secrecy should be treated with excessive disclosure. I opened the box. Inside was a ring set with a small blue stone that had belonged to my mother. The first time I met you, you asked me to pretend that loving you made you more qualified for work you had already earned. Not my strongest professional decision. Then you stood on a bridge and offered to lose the promotion rather than let Harrison purchase my silence. That was the first time I understood the engagement had become emotionally dangerous. I lowered myself onto one knee. Thomas Mercer gave my father a beginning. Peter and Rose Ward gave him a life. Daniel and my mother gave me mine. You loved me without asking any of those histories to disappear. I love the woman who would rather rebuild an entire career than receive a title through someone else's erasure. I love the way you challenge bad budgets, straighten sugar packets when anxious, and create homes where one mistake does not become exile. Olivia Bennett, will you marry me without performance, leverage, executive approval, or any promotion depending on the answer? Tears moved down her cheeks. She knelt in front of me. Stand up. This position is traditional. Our first engagement followed enough questionable traditions. I stood. She held my face between her hands. Before I answer, promise me something. Anything honest. When fear makes you want to protect me by hiding the truth, speak. I promise. When I turn independence into distance, tell me. I promise. And when a boss invites us to a family estate, we request an agenda, independent witnesses, and separate transportation. Olivia laughed through tears. Then yes. I placed my mother's ring on her finger. She slipped the emerald ring onto mine. Why do I wear this one? I asked. Because the first time I wore proof that I had hired your devotion. This time you wear proof that you freely returned. Applause erupted from behind the gallery columns. Margaret, Martin, Common Ground residents, board members, my employees, and Olivia's attorney stepped into view. Olivia closed her eyes. You promised privacy. Margaret lifted Thomas's mechanical pencil. I promised not to invite Harrison. We married the following spring in the Common Ground courtyard. Young adults who had lived there during its first year attended alongside my craftsmen, counselors, teachers, and the former Blackwood employees who had chosen accountability over reputation. Photographs of Thomas, Daniel, Peter, Rose, and my mother stood together near the ceremony. Margaret carried the mechanical pencil. Martin carried the two ring boxes and complained that former promotion rivals should not be assigned emotional objects without hazard pay. Harrison attended quietly at the back after Olivia agreed to his presence. He made no speech and claimed no role. Olivia walked toward me alone because, as she explained, she was not being transferred from one authority to another. She was making a choice. During our vows, I promised never to confuse silence with protection. Olivia promised never to confuse independence with isolation. We both promised that any children we raised would know the whole family story at an age they could understand, without growing up sensing that names, careers, or relationships had been hidden around them. Years later, the original engagement agreement rests inside the Common Ground archive marked expired. Beside it hangs a photograph from our wedding. Our daughter once asked why her mother hired her father. Because I wanted a promotion, Olivia said. Did Daddy get it for you? No, Then was the plan bad? The plan was dishonest, I said, but it led us somewhere important. Our daughter looked at the emerald ring on my hand. Did Mommy have to marry you for real? No, Olivia answered. That was the important part. Then why did she? Much later, I said, after no boss was watching, we asked each other. The emerald still bears a tiny scratch from the night Olivia removed it beside Thomas's archive. She refused to polish it away when the stone was reset. She says marks are useful when they remind us that something can survive being used for the wrong purpose without pretending the damage never happened. Everyone thought Olivia had asked a stranger to fake an engagement for a promotion. Harrison invited us to Blackwood Ridge because he recognized my father's pencil and feared the evidence hidden beneath his family's bridge. Yet the invitation did not create our future. Blood returned Thomas Mercer to my history. Daniel's letter explained the life he protected. The archive repaired buildings, compensated residents, and changed the company that had profited from silence. None of those things made Olivia and me belong together. That choice came later, after the promotion disappeared, after the fake ring was returned, after we stepped apart, and after she entered my workshop with coffee and no professional reason to stay. Being selected is not the same as being valued. Receiving a title is not the same as earning respect. Performing stability is not the same as building a life. Every ordinary evening, when Olivia leaves her shoes beside the door and spreads common ground reports across our kitchen table, Thomas's mechanical pencil rests nearby. It no longer opens an archive. That is why we keep it. It reminds us that tools can reveal what powerful people hide, but they cannot design a relationship for us. That work must be done freely, honestly, and one ordinary day at a time. If this story reminded you that no promotion, family name, or inherited secret should decide whom you love, subscribe and share it with someone who believes real commitment begins only after every performance ends. And tell me in the comments, if your boss invited you to a family estate after recognizing something your partner carried, would you protect your career or follow the truth wherever it led?